My sights are set on Wisconsin. Don't say that very often, but that's the truth. This guy is heading to the Midwest Gaming Classic in about a week. We're going to preview the show. We're going to have Dan and Mark from the Midwest Gaming Classic on Coast2Coast Pinball in episode 74. Let's go. Welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. How are you? It is Friday night. It is a chilly Friday night, April 4th, 2014, here in San Diego, California. Coming to you not live at all from the Coast2Coast Pinball headquarters, which is just my office. What's going on? I am fully recovered from the trip to Texas, and then to New York, and then back. However, Sunday, I leave again for New York, the other side of New York, the western side of the state, doing some road shows for my work. I do tailor presentations a few weeks every year, and this is one of those weeks coming up. We call them road shows. It'll be fun, run my mouth a bunch. But at the end of the week, when work is all said and done, and my commitments to my job are finished, it's time for another show. I am headed off to the great state of Wisconsin, which I have not spent all that much time in my lifetime. Specifically, actually, I'm flying into Chicago, renting a car, and driving north, headed towards Brookfield, Wisconsin, and, of course, the Midwest Gaming Classic. Very excited. I think the Midwest Gaming Classic is one of the most revered shows by those that have actually gone and attended. Possibly misunderstood a little bit because it is not just a pinball show. It is a show of games of all sorts, whether it be arcade games, whether it be, tabletop games, as they say, whether it be console games, Nintendo systems, Atari systems, that type of thing, or pinball. It is the Midwest Gaming Classic. I have a personal agenda for what I'm going for. I'm going to see the spooky game, the Ben Heck designed America's Most Haunted. That's a big deal to me. I'm very excited to see that. I'm going to play some games that have been rumored to be on their way to the show that are very rare. I don't want to name names. I've had a few people tell me some things that are going to be there. Very excited about that. I'm there to just play a bunch of different games. I'm there to play the tournaments. I didn't play many tournaments in Texas. I was sidetracked. I was busy, and I didn't do that. But also, Mark specifically from Midwest Gaming Classic, who's doing some of the organizing this year, helping Dan and Gary out. I've been invited to moderate a forum on Sunday at the Midwest Gaming Classic with a plethora, a gaggle, a bunch, a group of designers, people in the pinball industry, names you know. And we'll be, from what I understand, we'll be asking some questions of these gentlemen. We'll be taking some questions from the audience at this symposium, at this forum, so to speak. And I'll be kind of moderating that. I'll be, deciphering what's asked and moving that along. And I'm more than flattered that the guys over at the MGC had thought of me to help out with that. I appreciate that. That's right up my alley. I look forward to it, and I'll try and do my best job. And so if anybody's listening and has anything that they really on their mind, pinball related, that you might want to ask some of the people who are maybe currently designing pinball games or have designed pinball games, I don't want to tip my hat exactly on the who will be on this panel, as it's still, I think, a bit of moving parts, but you'll know who they are, and it'll be fun. So, very excited. Going to get some more time on some more games. Looking forward to that. This episode will contain a pretty lengthy interview with Dan Lucen and Mark Zarnowski from the Midwest Gaming Classic, sort of getting a rundown. For those listening to Coast2Coast Pinball who maybe aren't very familiar with the Midwest Gaming Classic, give a rundown on what the show is, what you might expect to see, talk about a little of the history, a little what's going on, some good stuff, some good information, and give you a nice overview of the game. So, since we last spoke, and we talked in episode 73, I did sort of a complete rundown in Texas. One topic I didn't cover because I had not heard the whole announcement, and I wanted to go back and listen to it, and then again read about it, that I think we should talk about is possibly going to be the largest announcement coming out of maybe this year. And that might be premature to say, but Planetary Pinball Supply kind of shook the pinball world up a little bit last year at Expo by announcing they were going to remake Medieval Madness. They have the rights to the Bally Williams pinball licenses, and the first thing that they were going to go do on a large scale, as far as game-wise, was going to be remake one of the most sought-after and revered games of all time. Well, so now they're announcing something called WPC 2.0, which is extension ROMs. And their release says, new WC 2.0 games coming. Classics of Williams WPC/WPC 95 games. New updated and extended code. Optional feature extensions can be original code, sound, audio, extended, or rewritten. Will be available as an HW, SW hardware software kit to upgrade the game. So, what does that mean? Basically, what's going on here is that I think Planetary Pinball Supply sees that one of the things that's going to happen is the pinball community kind of grows, and people have bought up all the games, and programmers are becoming more developed and into pinball, I think, in general. We look at a project like, say, Bride of Pinbot 2.0, where you have a group of guys writing a brand new rule set, new DMD displays, actually DMD displays period, because that game doesn't have a DMD, writing dots, writing animations, and creating a new game software for an old game hardware. But Planetary Pinball Supply is in a unique position because if they can do it, they can use all the artwork, they can use the logos. If a third-party company does it and doesn't attain permission, they can't do that. So you have a situation where, like, I'm sure many of you have seen on the Pinside forums, someone's working on a No Good Gophers code extension, and they will not be able to use any of the animations or original software at all. And the gentleman working on that has great intentions. He wants to basically finish a game that has rules missing and features missing. And, he posted, probably almost 4 months ago, I believe his name is James, and he posted, pretty much, I think, reactionary to Planetary Pinball, kind of stepping up and saying, hey, you got to be careful what you're doing. He actually posted in his Pinside thread, there will not be one line of Williams code. I'll be writing all the rules from scratch. There will not be a Williams logo anywhere in the DMD animations. There will be no frames ripped from any original source material, such as the Williams ROM or the Caddyshack movie. So that, I probably should have thought of this at the time. And as I was talking about Planetary Pinball last episode, what's next for them and what can they do? Because what are the next games? And I got some great feedback on the idea of building, more remakes. Well, this is pretty great, because I said way back when Bride of Pinbot 2.0 was released, somebody needs to do Funhouse. Like, Funhouse is one of the best-selling games of all time, one of the most loved games of all time, one of the most compelling games of all time, and its rule set is okay. But it does not have a DMD. That's a game screaming for DMD animations. Funhouse, Rudy, it's awesome. The clock is ticking, the doors are closing, folks. So Planetary Pinball Supply can now do that, and they can sell their own upgrade kits, like Dutch Pinball is doing with Bride of Pinbot 2.0. They are selling a DMD speaker upgrade kit with new rules and software. Well, that's what you're going to see now from Planetary Pinball Supply. And on their Pinside thread, which is WPC 2.0, if you just go to the Game Manufacturers subforum and then the Planetary Pinball subforum, you'll find it. They have some mock-ups of a possible Circus Voltaire 2.0 or Tales of the Arabian Nights 2.0. They are going to collaborate with John Papaduke, who's the designer of those two games. He is already on board with them and talking to them about adding new rules, adding in maybe physical mods to those games that were maybe intended to be there originally that had to be pulled for budget reasons. Now maybe we could aftermarket add those mods back into these games, write new rule sets to incorporate some of them, or just write new rule sets to kind of fix things that over the last 15 or 20 years players have figured out, like, hey, this game's amazing, but the scoring is really out of whack. Think Champion Pub. Champion Pub, I love the game. Some people feel it has some scoring issues. You could fix that. You could take that rule set, take that scoring set, balance it out, add some more modes, add some more features, really tweak the game out, and then sell it. And then you have a new product to sell. Funhouse 2.0 is listed here. They have it listed. It says Funhouse 2.0, DMD support, new DMD animations, game rule extensions. So they do on their post here actually have a note that says Bride of Pinbot 2.0, quote, Dutch Pinball, or parentheses Dutch Pinball, is also now available through DutchPinball.com. So obviously those two companies are talking. I don't know what the agreement is. I'll try and find out. But this is a pretty big announcement that, I think the thread is now 8 pages deep or so, and I think you have a lot of people in the pinball community with sort of a DIY, do-it-yourself attitude who are thinking like, well, why don't we just do this with P-Rock? On the P-Rock platform, the multimorphic P-Rock platform, I'll write my own rules. And people saying, no, man, I should be able to write my own code and just distribute it how I want. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you write your own code that has nothing to do with the original Williams code and you don't use their animations and you don't use their logos, I think you can do that. However, it might be a whole lot easier if you had a team that's constantly working on updating animations, updating scoring, updating rules, and using all the current stuff so you don't have to start from scratch and sell that. It's not as do-it-yourself. It is sort of the big company with the licensee getting things done, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's great. And it's a simpler kind of ends to a means to an end is what I meant to say. So, do you need new hardware when you do this? Yeah, possibly. You may need new, driver board, new soundboard. If you don't have a dot matrix display in the game and you're going to write DMD animations for it, you obviously need to put a DMD in the game. I know that Rick in his post actually talks about, I believe brings up Theater of Magic as saying that, the saw blade, the rotating saw blade, or the third magnet that was originally to be included on the Twilight Zone, those got pulled, so maybe we can put those back in. Those could be features we put right back in, and you could use them with or without rule extensions, he says. So I think that's incredibly exciting because there's probably a lot of games that you could make small tweaks to and end up with an even better game, right? So they list two options of getting there, and they kind of have a great little thing that says, what do we need to do all this? And it says, Planetary Pinball Supply, now able via its license with William Electronics Games to create game updates. That's your 2.0. That's your rewritten rules. And then it says, number 2, you need hardware to support the environment, because you can't just go sticking a bunch of new software in, this old hardware. And they said there's 2 approved solutions today. The CGC controller, which is what they're using in the Medieval Madness remake. You may have seen, I believe that's the board and controller you see. That's the lone kind of piece of circuit board in the actual head unit on Medieval Madness remake. And they have what's called a fast WPC controller, which is something new they've sort of put out there. And then you need, number 3, new 2.0 game software / hardware, newer extended rules, new audio, new video. So you actually need somebody to program it all. I'm excited about that. I think that's cool. I think that what that does is, now depending on how good you are at it, how many people are working on this sort of thing, you could take games with sort of high runs that don't have great rule sets, rewrite these new games, and you have these fantastic reimagining versions of old games. So let me know if you have games in your mind that you think, man, I would love to see something redone for this. Now, obviously, it's not going to be every game. It's going to have to be a game with some demand. But I think that's pretty exciting, and I think that could end up, over the next, couple of years, be a huge development, because now we're not talking $8,000 for a new Medieval Madness remake. Now maybe you're talking $500 for a Funhouse upgrade, or $1,000 if you're going to have to include a DMD and speakers and stuff. So, pretty interesting stuff. I thought that was a big story that I definitely wanted to kind of touch on here tonight. I would like to welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball right now, from the Midwest Gaming Classic themselves, Mr. Dan Lucen and Mr. Mark Zarnowski. How are you guys doing?
Rock and roll. I'm doing well.
Dan is going to be the one coughing and trying not to die on our show. We want no medical emergencies on Coast2Coast Pinball. Dan's a little under the weather, and we wish him the best of luck in making it through to the show. And Mark will carry the weight if he needs to, right behind Dan, as we give a little preview of the Midwest Gaming Classic, which I am really excited to be attending for my first time. And I can't hardly wait to get to Brookfield, into the Sheraton, and the epicness and madness and good times that await us there. So kind of wanted to touch base with you first, Dan, and ask you, just give us a general hot button line item of, tell me what the Midwest Gaming Classic is, what you're excited about, and what the preview on your mind is going to be for the show.
Sure. The Midwest Gaming Classic is an all-encompassing gaming event that we started now about 14 years ago. When it started 14 years ago, the idea was that it was just a small gathering for gamers that really liked a system called the Atari Jaguar. It was a 64-bit console that Atari did right before they basically stopped making consoles. And there were still some people that were really into that console. And so there's a rotating yearly event called JagFest, when we renamed it Atari Jaguar Festival, that rotated around the country. And we said, this is fun, let's do this. And so we brought that event to Milwaukee, and we had a pretty successful show, which was about 100 people. And then we said, this was so much fun, let's hold a yearly show. And so we put our heads together with some other people, and the show's been growing ever since. We, the second year, decided to name it the Midwest Classic. It actually became that name because we held a contest, and Ben Heck, or Ben Heckendorn, actually came through with the name for us, the Midwest Classic, and we liked it. We had a gaming a couple of years later, so that we actually found out that there was a basketball tournament called the Midwest Classic, and we thought, well, that's confusing. So we added the word gaming to make sure that people understood what it was, and we, at first, were trying to decide what made a classic game, and my cousin at the time, who was pretty young, basically said to me that a game that was less than 2 years old was his favorite classic game. And he said the reason why was because of all the memories that he had coming over to my house and playing it with me. And I was like, all right, right there, we've got our way that we define a classic. A classic game is the memories that you make playing. It can be a game that just came out today. It can be a game that's not out. It could be a game that is 40, 50. We've had games as old as 80 years old at the show. And so it's just grown ever since then. We've had collectors and companies and stuff like that get involved, but it's very much a collector-driven show where we're going to have over 60,000 square feet of just cool stuff that collectors do and show. And it ranges from, we just announced today that we've confirmed now over 250 arcade and pinball machines, and we have more on the way. We have about the same number of consoles that'll be set up for home consoles. We have a vendor hall that this year has expanded to be more than double the size of what we did last year. It's going to be about probably 15,000 plus square feet of vendor space. And it's just, the unique part of it is that the event's not held in one giant hall. We basically can't find a hall big enough and affordable for us in the Milwaukee area, so we instead take over this entire hotel. So the moment that you walk in the hallway, in the hotel, Nate, you're going to see tables set up for some tabletop gaming there. And when you walk to your room, for instance, you may be walking through areas that consoles are set up and that maybe even pinball and arcade machines are set up. And that's really the unique part of our show, is that there's stuff everywhere. I heard someone last year describe it as a giant video game frat party, and I think that kind of really works for it. It's a giant frat party of people that make an amazingly family-friendly event that is unique and super fun.
I'm a big, junkie of listening to podcasts about, obviously, pinball, and you come up year after year, I listen back in the years, and the Midwest Gaming Classic comes up, and it seems like to me the arching theme of your event and your show is that over the past few years, A, pinball seems to be becoming a larger part of the Midwest Gaming Classic, and B, you guys are outgrowing your space, and you're very aware of it, it seems like, and that seems to be sort of an issue.
Yeah, the pinball side of it is just that it's very hard to get, how to say this right. The pinball side of it has always been a big part of the show. Gary and I have always seen it as an equal part of the show. It's just that because when we started the show, there was no other show in the country at the time that was focusing equally on consoles. A lot of people said, well, it's really a console show, and it never was. It was always a pinball, arcade video, home console, modern gaming, computer, tabletop came in recently, but all of those things show. And Gary and I are both huge pinball fans. I'm sitting by 9 pinball machines right now set up in my basement. I own a lot more that are currently in storage that I use the Midwest Gaming Classic kind of as an excuse to own. And eventually I'll have a big house, I swear, that I'll be setting them up in. But pinball has always been a big part. It's just that the pinball community, I think that as a lot of collectors have, I'm a pretty young guy in the collecting community, and so is Gary. We're both 33. And for us, pinball was a huge part of our youth growing up, but so was Nintendo and playing our NES, and so was our Atari 2600s. And I used to shop with my dad for games at rummage sales and stuff like that. And what's happened is that collectors that are now my age that are getting into pinball are really seeing how the whole show works as a kind of whole thing, and they're coming in and saying, this is amazing, and I really want to be part of this. And so it's really taken off because people are understanding the vision of the show.
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea how old you guys were, so to hear that you've been running the show for 14 years and you're 33 years old, you started this at 19. That's a pretty big step for someone at that age to say, I'm going to put together this show based around, at that time, I guess, the JagFest idea.
Yeah, Gary and I are kind of crazy, and I say that in the most nicest way. But how it all basically came together is that in, let's see here, in 5th grade, I had known Gary since I was in probably kindergarten, but in 5th grade was when we really became pretty good friends. And at the time, in our classroom, we had Apple II GSs, and I had been learning how to program on them. My uncle kind of got me into it. Gary one day saw me doing it and said, I want to figure out how to do that. And I said, sure, I'll teach you. And so him and I would stay after school for a couple hours on a pretty regular basis programming silly little games on Apple II GSs. And it basically cemented a friendship where when we were in 6th grade, we were talking about how, it would be great if someday we could make our own software company. And at the time, that was relatively a real achievable thing. And so we never really gave up on that. And so what actually ultimately funded the Midwest Gaming Classic is Gary and I also run a company called the GOAT Store, and GOAT stands for Games of All Types, and we sell retro games online. And so we also have published now certain Dreamcast games and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, we're going to be making a pretty big announcement at the Midwest Gaming Classic this year about some more games that we're going to be announcing. But we kind of got into that, and then once we got into that, it was like, okay, now we've got some connections and some product and stuff like that where we could do this. And Gary and I have always been people that have stood up and said, hey, you know what, we want to do this, let's get it done. And we're very blessed to have so many different people around us who think the same way. That first year, we have a friend still to this day, a really good friend. His name's Marty, and Marty Goldberg is one of the main guys behind the museum who found out about our show, emailed us, and said, hey, I want to take part in this. And he's now someone who Gary and I see on a regular basis when it has nothing to do with the show. And that same year, we had a visitor come, and his name was J.D. Norman, and J.D. Norman now takes the more modern side of the museum, and he's been with the show since that first year because he said this is amazing. And so we've just been really lucky that a lot of people had kind of the same vision. So that's really what it all grew out of, and it's just been, when I was collecting pinballs, Gary and I bought our first pinball together as actually technically the GOAT Store when we were 19, and that was just not something that 19-year-olds did. And when I was posting on RGP and I was 20, I was generally the youngest guy. And now there's a lot of people that are our age that are really coming to the hobby. And I had always thought that would happen, and it's pretty amazing to see it happening. And I mean, selfishly, part of the reason that we started the show was that we were worried that pinball was dying and that we wouldn't be seeing much more of it. And we wanted to help promote retro gaming, and for the Goat Store, selfishly again, and then see what else we could do. And it just became something that's so much bigger than anything like that.
What game did you guys buy when you were 19?
Cybernaut.
Oh, okay.
Long story short, I wasn't even it was at an auction, and long story short, I was in school at the time. The Goat Store had saved up some money because we were thinking about starting to carry pinball parts in the Goat Store. And so there was a Jurassic Park, and that was my favorite game as a kid. It's still one of my top 3 games today. And we were we had pooled, like, I don't know, it was probably about $600 total, and we were hoping to buy 1 arcade machine and 1 pinball machine. And I was so hoping for the Jurassic Park that was right next to the Cybernaut. And I didn't even look at the Cybernaut. And so when I called after school on my old brick phone that was seriously about the size of a cinder block, and was talking to Gary, he was like, hey, we got this game. It's called Hold On, Let Me Check. And my heart sank because I was like, he would have remembered if it was Jurassic Park. And he told me it was Cybernaut. And it actually gave me a huge appreciation for those older games. It's a really fun shooters game. And we still have it.
That's a fairly rare game. I know that game because a friend of mine actually had one, and there's less than 1,000 of those, if I remember correctly, that were built.
Yeah, there's supposedly only 400 of them, and we've never gotten a set of plastics for it, but we did find an NOS playfield. Haven't yet put it in because it's got like the weird curved wood part in it, and I'm terrified that we're going to try curving the wood in the playfield to match the playfield properly, and it's going to break, and
oh boy, yeah,
waste it. But it's a really cool game that I don't think gets enough credit because it's so rare.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So looking forward to this year's show, I would love to hear what you guys feel, especially on the pinball side, obviously, because that's what my listeners are probably listening for. What are the highlights going to be? What are they going to see? I've read about some rare games that have popped up at the show in the past, and that's a lot of times people's draw is getting to see games they haven't normally see. So what are they going to see? Who might be there? I know there's some great names already confirmed. I'd love to kind of get a rundown on the activities.
All right. Well, Mark, do you want me to kick that off, or should you?
Go ahead and kick it off, Dan, and I'll talk a little bit more about the pinball side of things as it goes in the speaking hall.
Okay. Well, we've got, like I said, about 250 confirmed arcade machines at this time. That's both arcade video and pinball combined. I believe that about 125 to 150 of those are currently pinball machines, okay, and that number has been increasing pretty steadily every day. We generally have an extra pretty sizable bump once the show actually happens with people that forgot to tell us that they were bringing a machine that shows up, so I would not be surprised to have over 300 machines. Having said that, I never confirm any specific machines that are going to be there that I don't own personally, just because you never know what's going to happen. But I know that there's a number of companies that are looking at bringing some unique stuff. I don't know of anybody that wants me to necessarily be announcing anything at this time, so I'm just going to say make sure to walk into the arcade hall and take a look around. We've got part of the arcade hall that we're sectioning off for kind of an arcade vendor showcase, and there's going to be a certain number of specially revealed games in that place. Whether they're games that they might have seen at other shows or not is, I guess it'll be a surprise. But I think that people will be pretty happy with the selection that's there. There's a big pinball tournament that will be played just outside of that hall. There is also some Friday activities where there's another tournament. There's a open house where there's a local collector. His name's Tom Taylor, and Tom is an amazing person, again, who I met through the Midwest Gaming Classic. And he actually, about 5 or 6 years ago, was talking with me, and he said, one of the things that annoys me is that so many people think that there's not many pinball machines at the Midwest Gaming Classic. And he said, so anybody who wants, the Friday before the show, will collect donations for a charity, and they can come out to my place that I've got my machine set up to play. And I was like, that's cool. And I, at that time, hadn't been out to see Tom's collection, even though I had heard that it was amazing. I hadn't realized exactly how huge about 400 arcade machines mostly EM pinball machines setup is. And he only takes 100 people. Those seats, unfortunately, or those spots, unfortunately, are already sold out. But it's amazing. You get to see this huge collection of machines. All of the proceeds go to a charity, the Milwaukee Rescue Mission, that helps people in our area. And when you combine that with the show machines, you're talking about over 500 pinball machines that you can play throughout the weekend, over 650 total arcade machines. And it's pretty amazing to be able to see all of that in one place.
That's great. So, Mark, as far as some of the folks from the industry and past and present, who might we see and get to maybe get a photo with, take a selfie with, or listen to some presentations from?
Well, at the very least, I think it's a safe bet we'll have all three of Stern's current designers that are in rotation right now. Not sure at this point if they'll be there the entire weekend, but there's a good chance that will happen. We're also going to have kind of a pinball industry roundtable discussion seminar that's going to be at noon on Sunday. And we'll have a bunch of folks that are participating from Stern. Also, John Papaduke will be there, and hopefully some others that I'm not sure about yet. But let's just say I'm excited to have a good panel for that. And for those of them that are only going to be there one day, maybe Saturday, or not stay the whole time, a lot of them like to do the meet and greet thing, autographs, that type of thing.
Yeah. That's great. I think that a lot of some of the people listening to this show are very interested in what John Papaduke might be doing, saying, and up to. That's a good catch right now for the show. I think that'll go over really big.
I got a little sneak peek of what John's working on at his studio or his shop a couple of weeks ago. That was my first time out there, and he's got some fantastic stuff going on that looks like it's not far from completion. That's all I'm going to say, and we're not sure what John's bringing or what he's going to be doing, but he will be at the show. Keep changing his mind on what he's going to be doing there, as in terms of a setup or things like that. But he will definitely be there, be part of the seminar, and hopefully he'll have some of his items with him.
Now, I personally, myself, selfishly, am sort of shopping for games, and I am really excited to see fellow podcast hosts and new pinball manufacturers, Spooky Pinball, with Charlie's group, come out and bring, hopefully, I believe they're bringing in America's Most Haunted, Ben Heck's game. That's something I'm really excited to see. I know that you guys are really close with them, so that's going to be interesting, seeing them transition from this crazy group of, fans and podcasters into, builders and manufacturers.
I'm interested to see that as well, because I'm kind of seeing it from that perspective also. I typically only see Charlie maybe a couple times a year. I see him at Pinball Expo in Chicago, and I see him at Midwest Gaming Classic. And in my mind, he's running around with a little tape recorder, doing interviews in the first year of a show about 3 years ago, and that's what I'm still envisioning. I don't know a whole lot about what he's working on. I have more knowledge of what Ben works on or had been working on before, because Ben's been part of the show for a long time, like Dan said, and he's participated in seminars of all sorts of things, including the infamous Bill Paxton pinball machine.
Yes. And also, you guys have announced that sort of an icon in not just the pinball, but really the arcade industry, Eugene Jarvis, will be actually giving the keynote presentation on Saturday at noon, I believe. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Eugene's been at our show a few years, and we're lucky to have him. He's a busy guy and hard to track down, but for those of you that don't know, Eugene is more known for the early days at Williams as part of the Vid Kids, doing Robotron and games like that. But he also did some programming for pinball. He worked with Steve Ritchie on the first High Speed.
Yep. I know that he was involved with Firepower, Space Shuttle even. His name gets attached to some...
F-14.
Yeah, F-14, yeah. And so he's just very legendary. So that'll be exciting to hear that, for sure. As far as tournaments go, it's the Midwest Pinball Tournament or Midwest Pinball Championship? Is that the...
Midwest Pinball Championship is one of the tournaments that is out there, but that's the main one that we do.
That's the main one. Is that... What's the setup there? Is that like all-day qualifying Saturday, final Sunday, or how does that run?
There's qualifying on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday night is a little bit limited. And basically there's 5 different machines. It's $5 for 1 entry per machine, 3 for $10. And so basically you need to pay at least 2 times to play all the machines at least once. There's going to be Metallica in that, Jurassic Park, and the Jurassic Park that's in it, I can confirm, is going to be running the new code that Chad Hendricks has been working on as a test. And I've been actually working with him on it a little bit, and the game is more balanced than it's been before. And it should be really great to be using that one then as a tournament and getting players that haven't played with that new code to get to see exactly what that's like. Pinbot will be involved in the tournament, and I believe that it is Gottlieb Super Soccer, not positive that's Gottlieb, that we've announced there's one machine that we always do not announce, but there'll be a total of 5 different machines that you play. We have copies of the 3 newest games, so that there should be pretty short lines for it the entire weekend, or at least that's what our hope is. If you've never played in a pinball tournament before, C Division is completely free. C Division is played on Metallica Pinball. You sign up, you play Metallica Pinball, you get 1 free play on it. Your score does qualify you in A and B if you continue to go on. If not, you get to be in C Division and see how your score stacks up and play Metallica for free. There's a women's tournament that's there. There's also some special tournaments. We have an Orbiter 1 that we bring to the show, and we do that as a tournament just because it's so unique as a game that it's fun to watch people who have been playing and are used to all the regular pinballs and challenge themselves on Orbiter 1. We also have a hybrid tournament that we do, and the hybrid tournament is a pinball machine and an arcade machine, and you're timed on both of them. You've only got 2 minutes per machine, and then your scores are combined with a modifier to make them kind of pair up, and whatever your final score is between the two is your final score. So those are all some kind of unique ones. There's also a kids tournament. There's also some other stuff like that. Friday night we do something called Clock Chaos, which there's about probably 5 spots or less available right now.
I would recommend that most people don't need to even bother, because I have entered that, and therefore they can just save their money and, stay home.
There you go, exactly. So what Clock Chaos is that it's actually, a few years ago we wanted to run a pinball tournament on Friday night, but we wanted to run a different one because some people don't like the format where you can continue to try to qualify all weekend.
Yep.
So what Clock Chaos is that you pay $20 once, there's 5 machines, you play each of those 5 machines 1 time, and then at midnight, actually, the top scores, I think it's 12 scores, might be 13 scores, come back and they participate in what we call the 13th hour, where they get 1 additional play on one of the machines, and that play potentially changes their spot in the tournament, and that's where they end up for the night. So it's a pretty quick tournament overall. There's 5 machines, but it's a really fun tournament, and it's huge. We, I think, are taking almost 80 slots this year for it, which is, it makes it into one of the biggest tournaments that I know of that's played.
Friday night is more of the special events that you need to sign up for in advance to take part in, whereas Saturday the show actually opens.
Well, it's mostly like that. We have on Friday night, it's Tom's Tour, which is Friday afternoon. It's Clock Chaos. There's a Call of Duty tournament. But then there is a lot of free stuff, too. We always do karaoke in the bar for free. And so if you happen to show up that night, then you can go into the bar. Last year, the highlight of it was Ben Heckendorn singing Pinball Wizard with glasses on and doing, he apparently coordinated the whole dance for it and stuff like that. And he did that in the bar, and that's completely free, unless if you want to get a drink or something like that, and you just show up and have fun. We also have a couple tabletop tournaments that are completely free in the lobby, one that starts at 9 o'clock, one that starts at 10:30. So even though if you haven't signed up for stuff and you're like, I don't know if I want to do Clock Chaos or something like that, if you're going to be in the area, it's worth dropping by, seeing what's going on. Just like on Saturday night, we've got some bands that are going to be playing after the show closes. So if you're in the area and you're basically, we have an after party for people that bring machines, but we don't want to leave out those people that travel from, say, we have people that traveled last year from England, Australia, Norway, and Germany to the show. I know this year already that we've got at least one group traveling from Japan to the show. We don't want to be like, hey, too bad you couldn't pack a pinball machine on the airplane. There's nothing for you to do. So there's different things going on Saturday night too, mostly those bands and stuff like that, so that you can still hang out, play some games. Qualifying on pinball machines for the Midwest Pinball Championship ends at 10 on Saturday. Excuse me. So there's just lots to do. Basically, we try to make sure that we cram in so much to the weekend that there's no way that you can get it all done.
That's awesome. Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to be there. I plan on doing a lot of audio recordings at the show, creating podcasts out of the show. I want to meet you guys in person and get your take on the events as they happen. And I have a lot of listeners pretty excited about Midwest Gaming Classic this year. So is there anything else I can promote for you guys? Anything else we can talk about here on the show? Or should we wrap up and let Dan try and get some rest?
I do want to mention... Oh, sorry, Dan. Stepping on you there.
No, you go ahead first.
I want to mention something new for our show this year is that we will have 7 or 8 of the newest Stern pinball machines. Actually, they will be unboxed, I think, on Thursday, setting up on Friday at the show. So we will have a Mustang, Metallica, and Star Trek, several of each probably. I'm not exactly sure of the quantity, but 7 or 8 total. And that's something new for us that we typically haven't done before, unless somebody had to bring one from their house that, they had already purchased. So we have a deal going on here and a sponsorship to make this happen. And it's exciting for me because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to play the latest machine, but, oh, there's only one, or, oh, no, we don't have that one. So that's new. Some of those machines, like Dan said, will be part of the tournament area. Also,
yeah, and that's a huge thanks to Marco Specialties. They're the people that kind of put together a deal with us so that we could work that out. Without their help and involvement, I know that we wouldn't have been able to pull that off.
That's excellent. That's great.
Exactly. I'm also really excited to have the 3 bands. We have 3 Milwaukee area bands. One or two of them are actually more geared towards the 8-bit bit music. We have Beaker and the Zelda Routine and Awkward Terrible in that order, starting at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. And that's, everything is seminars, bands, all that is right in the middle of the hotel, right next to the front desk almost. That's the nerve center of everything. Pretty much you walk past there, whether you're going to the vendor hall, the game hall, you have to pass it. So we basically take over the restaurant and bar area to do our seminars, which makes it different than any other show I've done where it's always, a separate room someplace on the side that's all closed off. So this has a lot of visibility, and the addition of the bands this year is really exciting to me.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys spending some time with me tonight on Coast to Coast Pinball. I look forward to seeing you guys according to your website as we record this, 1 week, 0 days, 11 hours, 19 minutes, and 43 seconds.
Oh, gosh. I've got a lot to do.
A little bit of a countdown there, yeah. Well, very good, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Well, that is going to wrap it up for us tonight on Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 74. I want to thank Dan and Mark again from the Midwest Gaming Classic. We touched on some other stuff off the air. I think one of the things that Dan did mention was I had asked him about growth and the size of the show, and then he didn't address it, and he felt bad, like he didn't want to dodge the question. And we tried to get it back dubbed in, but it didn't work. But basically, they have expanded big time, and they have an external outdoor temporary structure being built just for the Midwest Gaming Classic. I think it's 15,000 square feet of additional space that's going to be outside. That'll be heated and lit and be really nice to just try and get more and give more room and get more vendors. And you can tell that this show definitely has a very loyal following. They promote Sunday as Family Day. I know I have a lot of buzz going on about this show, so really exciting times. Thank them again for having me come be a part of it. Cannot wait. If you are coming to the Midwest Gaming Classic, find me, say hello. I will be the fool running around with a Coast to Coast Pinball t-shirt on, with a recorder, talking to people, playing games. If you'd like to challenge me to a duel, I will accept your challenge. We should play some multiplayer pinball. Don't try and drag me on the console games. I don't have time. Pinball. But let's drag the console folk over to the pinball games, right? So anyway, really appreciate it. Probably have another show before the Midwest Gaming Classic. I will be in Taylor Roadshow mode, so we'll see if I can squeak a show out one of the next few nights. If you want to get a hold of me, coast2coastpinball@gmail.com. I have a ton of email to get to on a episode coming up soon. I will do that. We'll check the mailbag, have some games that I recently played to talk about. Lots going on. T-shirts are sort of for sale now. I'm traveling a bunch. I sold a bunch of T-shirts. I'm waiting for some more, so I've kind of pulled them from the website for right now. Don't know what I'll have at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Don't think I'm going to bring them, just space and travel and all that good stuff. Yada, yada. Appreciate you listening. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.